So the very first thing that I look for whenever I'm looking for a brisket is marbling. Marbling is a fancy word for fat, right? But this fat is not this fat that's on the outside that's probably not going to render, or some of the surface fat. What the marbling is they're talking about is this fat that is trapped in between the muscle fibers. The more you have of this fat trapped between the muscle fibers, the softer your meat tends to come out. If it's a prime brisket, you're going to see a lot more marbling compared to the other cuts of meat. So that's one of the reasons that you pay a little bit more for it. So the second thing I look for is I try to get a brisket with as least amount of non-rendable fat as possible. And the way you can tell a rendable fat compared to a non-rendable, rendable fat's the one that's going to melt away during this. Most of it is going to melt away during your smoke. The non-rendable is the one that's going to stay there even afterwards. Typically, the biggest part of your non-rendable fat is going to be in this area. So if you can find a brisket that has that pretty much trimmed off, it'll help in the long run. One, because you'll get more meat. You're going to be paying for more meat instead of more fat. And two, you won't have to do a lot of trimming. The other thing that I look for whenever I get a brisket, or whenever I'm selecting a brisket, is how pliable or how flexible is this thing. Because if this thing is as stiff as a board, that means that there's a lot of this non-rendable fat, the fat that's not going to melt into your meat. So the best thing to do here is try to get one that's pliable, that can move up and down. That tells you that there's a lot of rendable fat in here. And the last thing that I look for in a good brisket is I try to get them as uniform as possible. Keeping this uniformity is very important, because while you're smoking, this part of the brisket, the thinner part, is going to end up coming out sooner than the rounder part. So those are the major things that I look for whenever looking for a brisket. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.